Guys, Anthony Barton here. I'm going to share my thoughts on teacher compensation and alternative pay. Obviously, teacher compensation is something that's important to me. I was a classroom teacher prior to going into administration, taught high school social studies. Um, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. So I can remember doing my senior project in high school and knowing what teachers made and kind of being okay with that because I definitely knew that it wasn't something that was going to make me wealthy or rich, but I knew it was my calling and my passion. So um, I just knew I wanted to teach. So as a teacher, teacher compensation meant a little differently than what it means to me now. As a teacher, obviously it was my way of life. It was my livelihood. It established and set the tone for how I was going to live my life, what I could afford, where I could live. So as a teacher, I always had a part-time job. Early on in my teaching career, I actually worked at a grocery store. I had done that for about 10 years prior, even through high school and college. So I actually kind of enjoyed that. When I started, when I had been teaching a couple years, I actually started teaching part time with the North Carolina Virtual Public School. So, which was really fun because I got the opportunity. I was a high school U.S. history teacher, and at the time that was a tested area. So I done pretty well. Always had great results with my students. So I didn't really get to teach anything else. So with the North Carolina Virtual Public School, or NCVPS as we called it, I got to teach the fun stuff: African American studies, minority studies, psychology, and then later after the essential standards came in, helped write American History 1 and 2. So it was fun reaching out and talking, teaching students all over the state. But it also served a purpose because it supplemented my income. I ended up moving into administration a little earlier than I anticipated. Actually, I never even anticipated going into administration. I thought those folks were crazy for even wanting to do that. But just some opportunities were kind of put in my path. I had some awesome leaders, I guess, that saw some strengths in me and encouraged me to do that. So, as a teacher, teacher compensation meant one thing. As an administrator, it means something else. And it is difficult to recruit teachers to North Carolina and especially to Robeson County, simply because our supplement is not as high as some of our neighboring counties. Just the fact of the matter is teacher compensation is important. It's a tool to recruit teachers. And when you want the most talented folks doing the most important job in the world, they absolutely have to be compensated. So wanting to speak a little bit on what Peterson said in Saving Schools. Unfortunately, teachers really don't have much opportunity to make more money. It's not like they can walk in my office when I offer them a job and negotiate what their salary is going to be. He even mentions master's pay there, and that teachers can go get their masters and make more. That's not even a opportunity here in North Carolina anymore. And I'm really glad that I still have teachers that are moving to get their master's pay, but that 10% pay differential is gone. One of the things that teachers can do here in North Carolina, obviously, is to try for national boards, which is a 12% pay increase. But outside of that, and maybe doing some tutoring or Saturday Academy in my school district, their pay is pretty much set in stone. Most situations in most school districts and states, teachers aren't rewarded for superb teaching. One of the things that's going on now in North Carolina, they have instituted some bonuses for some teachers in grade levels. Third grade teachers now receive bonuses based on growth. If they fall into the top 50% of the growth in the state, I think the top 25% of the growth for the school district, are level 4 and 5 ELA teachers can qualify for a growth bonus, and then also our grade 3 through 8 math teachers, based on growth, can actually qualify for a bonus. And I don't know how I feel about that. I absolutely feel that it's important that teachers are rewarded for hard work. Our school exceeded growth this past year, and I absolutely know that some of my teachers are going to qualify for those math bonuses, and I'm really proud of them because they worked super hard and their kids did too. We had to do some things differently because when I got to that school, we were low performing and had not made growth. But on the other hand, I also have some other astounding teachers in science and ELA that worked just as hard and got awesome results, but won't be compensated for that. But then I also have teachers like me that were social studies teachers and resource teachers. I have resource teachers that help with intervention and pulled struggling kids out and help make assessments and do things that also ultimately at the end of the day made a great difference in our results at the end of the year, but they won't be compensated for that. I thought it was interesting that Peterson said that originally the point or the purpose behind making sure everyone or all teachers made the same amount of money was so that no political favors would be given out by the school board. And I do know that is something that happens in some places. I know some school districts are a little more political than others, and if certain teachers made more money, then maybe the most qualified person wouldn't get that job. He made mention to in 2007 that 45% of teachers at that time, or not teachers, or the respondents that were polled, said that they actually supported pay for performance when only maybe 31% opposed. So the way I feel about performance pay, I absolutely believe that there should be pay scales that are different for different teachers. I've always said that if I ever go back to teaching, because I miss teaching desperately, I want to be a special education teacher. But for those of us that have been school administrators, especially principals, it's very hard to find great EC teachers. Not because that they don't want to do the work or work with the students that have disabilities, but simply because of the reporting procedures and the IEPs that have to be written. I've always believed that our special ed teachers should make more money simply because the accountability that comes with creating IEPs, implementing them, and hosting those meetings. So I absolutely believe that those folks should make more. But I also thought about, instead of just paying teachers based on growth or proficiency or how well their students may or may not test, I've always thought about some other things that could maybe be a cadre of things that we could look at when maybe paying teachers in different ways. And just to jot down a couple of things, I've thought about teacher attendance, which we know is a direct impact on student achievement. And I'm going to talk about that just a little bit in the next article. If teachers aren't at work, they can't teach students. And it's much better at my school than when I got there. I do believe that when teachers are happy, when you have a positive culture and morale is high, teachers are going to come to work. They'll make, when they see that the school leader leads by example and making sure he or she's at work, they're going to make a better effort at being there too. But I do think attendance could be considered, experience could be considered, maybe the extracurricular activities that they involve themselves in could be considered. I do think their evaluation should be a portion. And not necessarily just the summative evaluation at the end of the year, but also the classroom observations and walkthroughs that go all year long. And then I do believe that proficiency and growth does have a part in that, because even with proficiency, you may not always get every student to pass, but we can grow all children. And so looking at where that child was at the beginning of the year and seeing where they are at the end, I do believe could be a part of the process. So in transitioning to what Michael Podgorski says about teachers, he does make some interesting points that I have thought about many, many times, especially when I left the classroom and became a school leader. He says that predominantly most teachers just work 190 days. And when you look in the grand scheme of things, they're right. It's true. Our teachers get summers off, if that's the way you want to put it. Weekends and federal holidays, Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving. Now, I absolutely believe teachers and principals deserve that, but that is part of the job. One point he made is that most teachers usually just work 38 hours a week. But that doesn't take into consideration a lot of things. Teaching is not a job that you just walk in, clock in, and then walk out, clock out at the end of the day. There are many times I spent as a teacher and definitely now as a school administrator. Now I'm not planning for classes, but I'm planning for PD. I'm planning for evaluations. I'm planning for how budgets are going to be spent, or what's going to happen for students the next day. Teachers spend the same amount of time planning at home about what's going to happen in their classroom the next day, because if they don't spend that time planning, their instruction is not going to be effective. He talks about that teachers have an opportunity to take days off and have more of a family atmosphere with their careers, where most folks in other careers can't do that, just simply because subs can be called in. And then he talks about the retirement and the benefits over time that teachers gain that lots of other professions don't offer. At the end of the day, I do think that education is a calling, but I also know that there are teachers that made the decision to become teachers, or have made this a second career, simply because of the benefits. And it may not be the pay, and it may not be the health insurance, but it is the opportunity to be home when their kids are home. Or if the kids are out of school, they can be out of school too. Or to be home to help with homework and to go to the extracurricular activities just simply because their job allows that. At the end of the day, I don't think that teachers make enough, especially not in North Carolina. I do think there's been some progression made, but it kind of hurts to see progression made for teacher salaries when our veteran teachers have been left out to dry. So at the end of the day, there's much work that needs to be done for teacher compensation. I am open to the idea of alternative pay, as long as teachers are brought to the table to be allowed to be a part of that conversation. Thank you for listening to my ideas about teacher compensation and alternative pay. I feel like I have a lot more to say, but our time is short. But thank you for listening.